Hello there, and welcome to the third and final part of this tutorial. If you're still here, respect. Create a new node setup and rename it. Delete all preview meshes. Go back to the first node setup. Enable the temporal viewer with Ctrl plus left click to visualize previews. Select the nodes involved and copy them with Ctrl plus C. Back to the third and paste and back again to the first one to re-enable the preview. Return to the third node setup and delete the geometries we don't need. Reconnect the output to the solid boolean node. Ctrl plus click again to enable the temporal viewer and do a quick check. Rotate the quadrant by 180 degrees. Let's check everything again. Add a chamfer solid node. Set the value to 0.01 and hide it by pressing H. Add a solid edges node again. Go back to the first node group and disable the preview to speed up the viewport. Enable cumulative node timings to spot possible bottlenecks. Add evaluate curve and set the samples to 4. Add viewer index and enable draw object index. Duplicate these to start masking the edges. Update the maximum edge count and start the usual process to select edges for the chamfer. Delete the edge index viewer. Briefly go back to node setup 2 to copy the mesh preview nodes. Let's remember to save. I go back to the second quadrant setup to copy the nodes needed for the fourth quadrant, paste them into the third and fourth group, and clean things up a bit. Once again, I apply a 180-degree rotation. I add the usual setup to visualize vertex indices. I duplicate these nodes to create the selection plus chamfer. I try to organize my thoughts because at this point my brain is completely melted. This is the moment where I usually realize I've been talking to myself for hours. No friends, no social life, just me, Sverchok, and my laptop quietly screaming for help. Once again, I start masking the chamfer indices. Something is clearly wrong. There it is, a geometry error. I go back to fix the indices of the first chamfer in the fourth quadrant. Much better. Now we can continue with the edge chain for the outer chamfer. Nothing builds character like debugging your own node spaghetti at 1 in the morning, while your computer sounds like a jet engine ready for takeoff. Let's try changing the solid preview colors to get something closer to the final result. And let's re-enable all the hidden previews to see how it's coming together. Honestly, not bad at all. I often work with previews and live updates disabled because, as you may know, my laptop is slowly dying. It's tired. It wants to retire. Let's create a new node setup for the front part and add a solid sphere. Change its color, scale it up, and move it downward. This sphere already looks better than my social life, but let's keep going and pretend this is all part of a master plan. Add a cylinder and then a solid boolean to intersect it with the sphere. Adjust the cylinder dimensions to shape the front part. Now I copy the nodes of all the quadrants to subtract them from the front part and create some interesting inserts. This is the first one. I change its color to distinguish it. I go back and disable the previews again. Apply a transform solid and rotate it by 180 degrees. I join them with a boolean, even though I could have used many other techniques. The important thing is that it works. I go back to the second node group to copy the second quadrant. Select Ctrl+C, then Ctrl+V where needed. It looks like I pasted the first quadrant again. Maybe I didn't press Ctrl+C hard enough. Let's try again. I merge everything with booleans, even if the objects are separate. As long as it works, I'm happy. I add the usual transform solid to get a rotated copy of the second quadrant. Once I finally have all 4 quadrants, I subtract them with a Boolean difference. I create fillets using the usual edge mask plus fillet technique. You've seen me do this so many times that you're probably wondering, why doesn't this guy just make a custom node group? I'm waiting for the Sverchok devs to do it for me. Just kidding. Kinda. I re-enable the previews for an overall view. Then I admire the results for a moment. Ah, my cursed ego. I add a cylinder and make it hollow with hollow solid. I use the usual index to mask to tell Sverchok which face to remove, in this case index 0. I subtract it with a Boolean difference to create a recess for an awesome sci-fi neon. Then, using a Boolean intersection of the same geometries, I get the neon insert itself. I add another Boolean difference and apply a transform solid to reuse the previous cylinder and create the central display geometry. This is the real power of this workflow. I can tweak the geometry however I want and see the results in real time, without worrying about vertices or edges. And I can always go back and change my mind. I re-enable all previews and convert the geometries to mesh to see the final result. At this point, I'm emotionally attached to this object. It has survived crashes, lag, and my questionable design decisions. That's already a success. I start fading out while applying materials and stencils. Maybe we'll save that for another tutorial. If you're still watching, congratulations. You officially have more patience than my laptop. This 3-part tutorial has been a long journey filled with sweat and suffering. I really hope it helped you learn something. If you want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment to fuel my fragile ego. See you in the next video. Maybe. Thanks.